Hi. It's been about 3 months since the end of the first Tekken World Tour Finals for Tekken 8, and Season 2 is right around the corner. There's been a lot of speculation on what exactly the date is, when there's going to be an announcement, but one thing we know for sure is that the next Tekken World Tour is going to be announced sometime soon before Combo Breaker starts, and that also means that we're going to be getting Season 2 sometime before then as well. It's on the horizon, and there's been a lot of talk on the changes that are going to be coming in Season 2. This includes new moves, buffs, nerfs, features, and I want to talk a little bit about the buffs that I think Lidia should get in Season 2. This isn't a comprehensive list of the changes I think that they're going to give to Lidia. To be honest with you, I don't think Lidia is going to get changed much at all come Season 2. However, I do want to make this video to discuss some of the changes I think Lidia should have, whether it's quality of life changes or just general strength changes to make some more of her moves make more sense and fall in line with other characters in the game. In short, this list is going to go over all of the moves with Lidia that I think have some weird inconsistencies, don't fit into her game plan, or overall just need changes to make sense with the rest of the moves that she has in her kit. There are some moves like down back 4, for instance, that are just overshadowed by other lows that she has, such as down 2 or down back 3, to a point where this low just doesn't have any real use case, and those are the things I want to talk about today in this video. But also, not all of you watching may be Lidia players and you want to get your voice heard too. So in the description down below, we have a YouTube thread to another community note where I ask you guys what buffs you want to see your characters have. It doesn't have to be Lidia, it could be any character. You could be playing Oscar, Raven, or even a character like Jin or Dragunov. Whatever changes you want your character to have to make them more fun, I implore you to leave your comments in that thread down below. Get them in by Sunday and I will be reading them on stream at twitch.tv/Sesujin to discuss some of the overall changes that you guys want to see just to make the game overall a bit more fun. Alright, and to start out this top 10 list of moves I think should be buffed with Lidia, I'm going to start with forward 4-3. This is a move that is supposed to be a cornerstone of Lidia's identity in her combos. This is actually a reference to a combo route that players that used Lidia in Tekken 7 found out, where in combos you could use forward 4 to extend your combos. That has been taken out, but has instead been replaced by this combo ender, forward 3, that when you use in combos gives this little effect, gives a wall splat / a wall break, and will regain a little bit of your health and do more damage the more medals that you have. The problem with this move is that there's very little use cases for it outside of doing your typical combo enders. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that Lidia's wall carry is actually quite good. So if we do a standard combo here, and oh god. So if we do a standard combo like this, and I apologize, my game is not running very well right now for some reason, but we can get a lot of wall carry and good wall conversion off of a standard combo. This is doing, for example, 95 damage. If we try doing the same thing with forward 4-2, even at 3 stacks, again, apologize, my game is not running at 60 FPS right now for some reason. But if we do forward 4-3 here, even at full stacks, we are getting a lot less damage, and we're not getting as good of Oki as we could otherwise be getting. The other problem with this too is if we do this off of something like Hop Kick, and when not near a wall, the amount of knockback that this move incurs makes Lidia's Oki game basically non-existent. Even if we carry the opponent all the way to the wall here, and then do this, and manage to get our follow-up off of here, this is actually still doing less damage than if we do Political Storm. The only time that you really want to use this move is if you don't have a wall conversion or a wall carry. If I do this combo, for example, I'm gonna get 82 damage. If I have 3 stacks here, and I do the full thing, and then the forward 4-3, you're going to see that I'm going to do 81 damage, which is a little bit less, but when you, and also count the recoverable gray health, it is giving you a little bit extra, and the pushback from the last hit in the combo doesn't make much of a difference because the Blossom finisher is also going to cause a large amount of knockback as well. But even in neutral, the problem is if you have heat, you can still get Oki. If I do, again, a similar combo here, forward, 2, 2, and then here, I can sidestep left, heat burst, down forward 4, slide 4, and then I get down 1 plus 2, or forward 2 as an Oki setup. So even though I'm losing out on a bit of damage, the Oki potential that you get off of that by doing heat burst is so strong that it's better than doing the damage. These factors combined means that forward 3 has a very, very niche use case. If you have anything less than 3 stacks, there's absolutely no reason to use it over using Blossom, even on an infinite stage. If you have heat, you can use your heat burst to get really strong Oki, and you can use your heat burst to increase your wall travel. So basically, the only reason you would ever use forward 3 is if you are on a big stage like Yakushima or Coliseum, you don't have access to heat, and you're mid-screen, so you can't get wall carry. And even then, a lot of the time, you're kind of just better off doing Blossom, because you also have to have gray health that you need to recover, otherwise Blossom is going to be doing more damage after one of those long combos. Now, normally this would be well and good, but I think the main problem with how this works is that, like I said at the beginning, forward 3 is supposed to be a cornerstone of Lidia's combo game. It's supposed to be her big ender. It's supposed to be prevalent in combos. But yeah, when was the last time you saw forward 3 be used by a Lidia player at all? And I can tell you the last time I saw it used was probably 3 months ago. And I was the one that used it. There's also the wall break aspect of forward 3. So when you do a combo, you can get to the wall, forward 3 to break the wall, and then you can continue your combo from there. The problem is twofold. One, Lidia doesn't want to interact with stage gimmicks, for the most part. And the reason why is because her Oki at the wall is so strong, you want to keep your opponent on the wall as much as possible. And if you do have to break a stage gimmick, you want to do it in as little amount of hits as possible. So if we're on, say, Ortez Farm, for example, you can carry from one wall to the other. The problem with forward 3 is it has 30 hits in it, which increases the scaling and reduces your potential wall carry combo after the wall is broken. So not only are you getting rid of the stage gimmick, which you want to keep for Lidia's big hits off of like Horse 2, forward 2 counter hit, forward 2 and heat, things like that that keep the opponent scared of the wall. But then also by doing forward 3, you're limiting your ability to convert to the other wall when you do break the wall. So even with one of its intended use cases of being able to break a wall and continue your combo, it still falls flat in that department as well. So on to move number 9, we will be talking about down forward 3. This is a really cool move. It's a very interesting move, and this is more of a personal wish of mine more than anything. This move could probably not get changed and it wouldn't matter. However, down forward 3 is a really neat move because it tracks to Lidia's weak side. So, and a lot of people for some reason believe that Lidia's weak side is sidestep left, and that's not true because down forward 2, oh my god, down forward 2 actually tracks to sidestep left. Really, her weak side is sidestep right. Most things that Lidia does do not track to sidestep right, with a couple of exceptions. One of them is down forward 1. Down forward 1 is a great mid-check to catch opponents sidestepping because of its tracking properties to Lidia's weak side and its fast startup. The problem with down forward 1 is it's susceptible to parries and sabakis because it is a punch move. That's where down forward 3 comes into play, because down forward 3 also tracks to Lidia's weak side and it avoids parries and sabakis, and it's only 14 frame start, which makes it a really interesting idea for a move. The problem is the frames on the first hit of down forward 3 are pretty bad. -8 on block and -5 on hit isn't quite enough enough for moves like down forward 2 or down back 3, more importantly, to be able to cleanly beat jabs afterwards. The other problem is that the second hit here, so I need to get them to block. The second hit is -12 on block, and the follow-up that you get off of this, it's only natural on counter hit, and you get forward 1+2, which is good because it does 60 damage, but when the first hit isn't natural and you have no way to delay it, you have no way to really counter hit confirm it, it makes this move a little bit just fall off the radar to a point where it's not worth using because of the risk and the very awkward reward. Yes, you can still work with the +5 if it hits, and yes, you can still stagger the string at -8 to try to catch the opponent here, but when the second hit isn't doing a whole lot for you and all you're really getting off of it is 30, well, the wall was there, so the scaling, of course, but 40 damage if the opponent attacks into it when you're taking that big risk at -12, well, marginal risk. It is still a risk, and it's more than what you should realistically have to take for a move like this. Couple that with its very low range, and it becomes a little bit too difficult to use properly. You're better off most of the time using down forward 2 because down forward 2 is an elbow attack. It also has more range than down forward 3 does, and it doesn't come with the risk of doing down forward 3-4 on a hard read. Overall, this move is just better because on counter hit it gives you heat engager. It's going to give you a little bit less damage overall at 34, but getting that heat engager starting your game like that is facilitating Lidia's game plan more than if this hits. So it still has some niche applications in specific matchups, like against Asuka and June, for example. Being able to track 2 sidestep and be able to counter Sabakis is a nice tool that you can use, but the frames on it just make it not make a whole lot of sense to use reliably outside very, very few niche situations. And again, most of the time you're better off just doing down forward 2, especially if you catch the opponent in the middle of their sidestep, or you know that the opponent isn't sidestepping very much at all. Next, number 8 on the list is going to be the elephant in the room, down 2. And this is a move that I feel like I have to mention because it's a very polarizing move. This is, I think, one of the best lows in the game. And a lot of people would disagree and say it's one of the worst lows in the game. And there are arguments to be made on both sides, and it's a very weird, touchy move that is really only good because of Lidia specifically and how she can utilize it, but you give this to any other character in the game and it's complete unusable garbage. So changing this move in any way is a very touchy thing, because if you move it even just a touch too much in the wrong direction, it's going to be completely broken. And despite the fact it's so strong, it still feels pretty damn bad to use because of the -4 on hit. The reason why it's so good, for those of you that don't know, is because it's pretty long range, it's high crushing, great approach tool, and on counter hit, it gives you from crouch down forward 2 guaranteed to put you into heat. And with Lidia, heat is everything. When you go into heat with Lidia, you are forcing your opponent into a guessing game where even blocking is incorrect. You can do things to make them respond, and if they don't respond, you do damage on block as well as hit. You can kill an opponent with Lidia while she's in heat if they don't play the game. Everything revolves around heat engagers and going into heat and forcing those situations. That's the cornerstone of Lidia's entire neutral game. So having a counter hit low, like down 2, that high crushes, has good range, can be used as an approach tool, is very, very strong for facilitating that game plan, and that's what makes it so good. The other nice part about this move too is the way it interacts with other moves that Lidia has. For example, if you do back 1, you're +2 on block. If the opponent tries jabbing this, to interrupt something like a down forward 2 or a down back 3 or a forward 2. You can down 2, counter hit them, and then get your guaranteed from crouch down forward 2. That's just one of the many applications that this move has with Lidia's kit. There are a lot of things that this move complements with moves that Lidia has, but also just in her neutral game, of course. If you run up, if you're trying to fake out the opponent doing something, say you're playing against Mishimas and they're doing electrics, dash up, try and bail an electric, down 2. If they're being scared of that, if they're being patient about it, dash up back 1 to catch them if you think that they have a read. Also, with this move, it tracks again to her weak side. So if the opponent tries doing sidestep into a button, say, again, with Mishima's sidestep electric, and you just go, down 2, then again, counter hit into heat engager. A lot of things make this move very strong. However, there are a lot of valid arguments as to why this move isn't good too. And a big part of that is the -4 on hit. A lot of the time you do this move and you lose your turn unless you have a lot of really hard reads or you do a lot of things correctly to scare the opponent into not hitting a button. Some things that you could do after this move hits, for example, you could sidestep, right? So if the opponent tries doing some sort of mid after this hits and you can sidestep it left, then sidestep left is a way to make the opponent whiff and then launch them. So that can be a deterrent to them attacking into this move, and that can allow you to crouch cancel into, say, back 1 or crouch cancel into a nod down 2. Those are a couple of ways to mitigate the -4, but of course, because there are so many very strong homing moves in this game, like Asuka's forward 4, for example, that will just launch you on normal hit, moves like June's forward 4 as well that give heat engager guaranteed on normal hit, that makes this fairly risky if you're being too obvious about it. And so it puts you into this mind game, guessing game that really feels really bad to deal with. And yeah, you can win these situations and end up getting down 2 and then just continue your pressure if you're conditioning the opponent correctly. But if the opponent has the right retorts, then you can end up putting yourself in a very, very disadvantageous situation when you hit this move. So to anyone who is maybe not a Lidia player watching this, I hope that can help you understand why this move is very difficult to actually balance. You can't change the counter hit property on it. If you made it so it was only minus or plus 11 on counter hit instead of plus 12, then Lidia would not be able to function. She would become infinitely worse if this move was nerfed in any way with the counter hit property. At the same time, if you buff the normal hit property, then Lidia has more free reign to do a lot of unfair things. If you make this move 0 on hit, for example, then While Rising 1 is a very good move that Lidia can use to track the opponent's sidestep. If you're at the wall and you can force from crouch down forward 3 to get a follow-up from there, or you can force While Rising 1 and you can do While Rising 1-4, mix up the high with the mid from the low when you're doing the While Rising, and then wall splat them and get damage off of that. So it's a very, very touchy thing, because if you make it a little bit more plus, it becomes objectively one of the best lows in the game. If you nerf it in any way, then Lidia as a character just stops working. She relies on this move a lot. So what's the middle ground to actually making down 2 not feel as bad, but also not come with all of these issues? And to be honest, I don't know. It's a very difficult situation, and in my personal opinion, I don't think this move is really going to be changed. I think that making this move -3 would be nice, but wouldn't have a real tangible effect on the weaknesses of the move and how bad it feels. If it goes to -2, that would be closer, but it would still be, still be able to get checked with stuff like down forward 1, for example. Of course, While Rising 4 would trade, but so it would have some effects on it, but it still wouldn't be it wouldn't make the move feel any better. But then if you make the move 0, like I said before, then that is going to introduce a whole host of issues, and I believe it's the same with -1, where that might be too far. So I think the middle ground for this is to maybe make it -2 on hit, but again, it's really difficult to say, and I don't think that this move is going to get touched at all because of how much on the razor's edge this move is between being completely broken and making Lidia non-functional. Okay, number 7 on the list was a difficult one. We're starting to get into the moves that when they get changed, they will have a significant impact on how Lidia is played all around. And it was difficult to think of the move that would have the least impact overall on Lidia, but I believe that that's going to be her built-in parries. Down back 3, up forward 1, and her generic parry are all moves that, like forward 3, are supposed to be a core part of Lidia's identity, and they were very prevalent with her in Tekken 7. However, the changes that they've made to her parries in Tekken 8 make them a lot more niche and harder to utilize. There are only some matchups where you're going to want to use these parries. Steve, for example, is a great matchup where you want to use the generic parry. Mishima's a great matchup where you might want to use up forward 1, but in normal matchups, for the most part, you're not going to use these. There are also some option selects that you can do with these parries. Like, for example, when Lily does 3-2 or when Lily does 3-1, so the high-end dew glide or the heat engager, you can parry both of those hits since they're both punches, and you can option select that. That's not something every character in the game can do. The problem, though, is that Lidia is taking the same amount of risk as most parries, but she's not getting a lot of reward out of it. Even characters like Lee or Leo, they have generic punch parries like this, but they at least can get a full combo off of it if their back is to the wall. There is some element of risk reward that's associated with their generic parries. With Lidia, all you get off of hitting her parry is about 30 damage. It's not worth the risk because it carries the same normal risks of a parry. If it whiffs and they get a read on it, you can get launched. If you can still get hit out of it with elbows or knees or all of that generic stuff, you can still get grabbed out of it. And it doesn't even wall splat. It only gives you 30 damage, and as I said before, most other generic parries are going to give you something. They're going to give you Oki, they're going to give you a wall splat, they're going to let you combo in some scenario. But with Lydia's parry, she doesn't even get proper Oki off of this, if I could actually hit the parry. When it comes to other parries as well, like up forward 1, for instance, yes, this move does have a lot of really good applications when you're playing against specific characters, again, like Mishima's. 38 damage is pretty decent to be able to get off of a parry like this, and it puts you in stance. And those problems are that the cat mix-up itself isn't great. You still have to play a mind game here. You can do the low that only does 10 damage and is -14. You can do the mid, which definitely has applications. Like, it does 26 damage, is a nice chunk, the wall splat. But for the most part, if they just block this, then you lose your turn and they're able to keep going. So it is giving you reward, yes, but considering the very niche, narrow application of actually being able to get this parry to work, this sabaki, I should say, to work, the reward you get off of it is very disproportional to what other characters like Asuka, for instance, would get, where if she just punches any punch, it doesn't even have to be a high, just any punch, then she gets full combo off of it. Another problem with the move itself is it's only +3 on hit, which means your generic frame traps, like again, down forward 2, forward 2, down back 3, don't work. You can get hit out of those attacks. And on top of that, this move loses to sidestep very cleanly. It's the same with down back 3+4 as well, where both of these moves are very slow, lose to sidestep, and make them horrible neutral tools. -6 on block, -3 on block. You can't do a whole lot with that. And then to top it off, the parry window on especially down back 3 is so tiny that even in practice mode, I have problems utilizing the parry when I know a move is coming out. In fact, I'll have a jab and then down back 3 here. And even if I know that this low is coming out, the parry window can be so small sometimes that I will still get hit by it even when I know it's coming. And here's the other problem too. You don't get, even though you get this guaranteed follow-up, you don't get any wall carry off of this. So if I low parry here and I do a dash jab combo like this, oh god. So if I do a low parry here and do a dash jab combo from round start on the beach stage, I go here with heat burst, you can see that I just about get full wall carry with my dash jabs. Try it again real quick. I should, yeah, full wall carry, 62 damage at the wall, and now I'm able to play my wall game. And of course, if I do down back 3 plus 4, you're getting about the same amount of damage, but you're not getting that wall carry, especially when the wall is so important to Lidia, and getting that low parry into wall carry is vital to facilitating your game plan, making back 1 scarier, making your lows more powerful, your front crouch mix up, front crouch down forward 3, kind of working like Julia's bow and arrow, and your while rising 1 mix. Losing out on the wall, even if there's a damage increase, is so bad that it's just not worth using in most scenarios, and it makes the move very niche already. But then when you take into account its unreliability, because, well, I should say lack of reliability, because of the small parry window, it makes the move, in my opinion, unusable. So what would be the way that we fix this move? And I don't think that you have to really change too much about the parry. The real problem is that it has to actually facilitate Lidia's game plan in some way. It has to do something to make the opponent think about it. And when you have a tool like this that's supposed to be an integral part of her moveset, but then doesn't play into her game plan in any meaningful way, that's the thing that really needs to be addressed. And I think the best way to address that is to make at least one of these parries heat engagers. I think it would add to Lidia's identity, trying to be this counter hit parry-esque character, and the parry aspect of it is just basically non-existent because of how poor these moves are. I think that hitting heat engagers is very clearly a core piece of Lidia's game plan. And because of those factors, I think that you can keep the way that the parry functions with its low damage and not giving you much guaranteed the same, outside of course, something like up forward 1 at the wall, giving you wall splat. But if you instead make them heat engagers when you get a successful punch parry, that would actually give Lidia a reason to use this move despite the niche conditions for it to work, because it gives Lidia an avenue to be able to get into her heat state, which can be round winning, off of something that is a part of Lidia's identity, and get an increase to the skill ceiling more by having to know about those option selects for certain strings, like what I said before, Lily's 3-1 or 3-2. Now we're going to start getting into the moves that I think, if they're buffed, are going to have a very significant impact on Lidia, starting with number 6, and that's going to be down forward 1. Now, down forward 1 already has a good use for it, and that's that it tracks to Lidia's weak side. The problem with down forward 1 has always been its frames. Only +2 on hit, it is -5 on block, which is terrible. And on top of that, the second hit, of course, only +4 on hit and can be ducked, and you can get lodged for it. Now, that said, no one ducks this move. Even the pro players don't duck this move. Trust me, I play Lidia at Frosty Faustings. No one ducked this move. No one ducked the high. But at the same time, it is a factor to consider. And considering you don't get anything off of this on counter hit, despite the risk that you are taking by throwing out this follow-up, it makes it feel really bad when you have to throw this move out a lot, when you're -5 on block, but it's the only way to be able to stop sidestepping in a really impactful and meaningful way that doesn't leave you very open. Now, the extension off of this as well, down forward 1-3, is supposed to make up for the fact that it is -5 because of the counter hit launch property on it. So down forward 1-3, oh god. So down forward 1-3, of course, on counter hit gives you a full launcher, which is very nice, right? The idea behind this is that, well, it's -5, but if they're pressing into the -5, you can do the follow-up and then just kill them for attempting to press into this, and that adds a little bit into the mind game. Much better in Tekken 7, but in Tekken 8, the problem is the frames on this move. Just to be completely honest, it being -13 is reasonable and makes sense for what you get out of it, but in a practical application, you're not going to use this move because of the risk, and a lot of the time, higher level players aren't going to attack into this because of that, but then you, as Lidia, don't really want to press another button after they block down forward 1 because of how minus you are, so it creates this really awful mind game, I say in quotes, where it just feels like you're behind. But yet you have to use the move because, you know, it's your down 4-1. It tracks to your weak side. You have to. And even on hit, because it's only +2, if you try really getting your pressure going after down 4-1 hits, they can just magic for you if you try doing back 1. I mean, even if you do this in the down 4-2, Steve's back 1 is a counter launcher on it. It trades. So it's just... The frames don't make sense. Well, they do make sense. I should say there is a reason behind it, and that's what this is supposed to cover. But because of the risk you have to take, there's just no real rhyme or reason to actually do that. You're better off just not hitting buttons, playing safe, trying to sidestep afterwards, and then hoping that you can get a big opening because they try doing something big, and then you get sidestep after and then political storm. Something along those lines. So what would be the changes that I would make to down forward 1? The first thing would be make it not -5. I think that's something that everyone can agree on. There are very few down forward 1s that are -5 on block. Elisa's is one of them I can think of. It's -6. And being an Elisa player in Tekken 7, along with Yoshimitsu, it feels bad, especially when you go from playing Yoshimitsu, who has a pretty decent down forward 1, to Elisa with -6. And it's the same with Lidia. But at least in Elisa's case, she has stuff like down forward 4, you know, 12 frame mid that she can use as a keep out tool instead of down forward 1. Elisa doesn't have to use down forward 1 because it doesn't track to a weak side. She has stuff like her 4, that's a homing move that she can use. Forward 4, back 3. Lidia doesn't have stuff like that. So it's relegating her to using this really poor move, this poorly thought out and designed move, as a way to stop sidestepping because all of her other homing moves suck, or they're highs. Down forward 3+4 is really the only mid-homing move we have that can make up for it, but it's 22 frames and does nothing. So we have to use down forward 1, and if we have to use down forward 1, we should make a down forward 1 that has frames like a down forward 1 that characters have to use. So instead of having it -5, I would say make it -2 and -3. I don't think that Lidia is a character where you can realistically make it like -1, but Lidia should be able to at least do something after her down forward 1. I think that the +2 on down forward 1 is fine. I would prefer on hit +3 just because of the high, you being able to duck it. If I recall correctly in Tekken 7, I might be confusing this with back to 1, but I believe it jailed. Again, I could be confusing this with back to 1 as well. That was also a 13 frame move that you kind of use as a down forward 1 because in Tekken 7, back 1 tracked to Lidia's weak side and back 1-2 was no problem. In fact, back 2 Sorry, I said back 1, 2. In fact, back 2 was very similar in concept to how her down forward 1 works. It's just the first hit was high, but it was more plus on hit. I believe it was +5 or something. It wasn't very minus on block. You had the safe high jailing follow-up, and then you had the mid counter hit launcher if they attacked into it that was -9 on block. So buffing all of the aspects of down forward 1 in this way is not only unreasonable, but it was the way that Lidia functioned before in Tekken 7. Of course, Tekken 8 is a new game, but just explaining this as a demonstration that I believe these changes are reasonable, and that's the evidence that I'm trying to cite. Now, the problem is, though, that a lot of those counter hit launching properties got changed in Tekken 8 because of course, the aggressive nature of this game. And because of that, a lot of these counter hit launches had to be tuned. Like, for example, Lisa's down forward 1-4, we're bringing it back, and now just gives a guaranteed follow with her heat engager. Instead of knocking down, it's -10 instead of -9. With Lidia, I think that them keeping this second hit as a counter hit launcher is a mistake, and it's the major shortcoming of down forward 1 as a move. And I think the best way to fix this is to make it like Elisa's down forward 1-4, where instead of giving a launcher on counter hit, instead it leaves you +14, kind of like how sidestep 4 does now, and gives you a guaranteed political storm. I think this would be a good change because Lidia already has moves like this. Again, her sidestep 4 is a good example of this. It facilitates her game plan more, like we discussed earlier. Lidia does not want launchers. The launches with Lidia aren't very good. You notice if I play Lidia, if I sidestep a move, instead of doing a launcher, I will do something like Political Storm for the 43 damage. And the reason why is because you do so much damage when you're in heat with your stacks that trading off even 20 damage for a heat engager is better for Lidia and just plays into her as a character, her character identity more. And that should be the focus with Lidia. And with stuff like down forward 1-4, it feels like those ideas are a little bit scattered, where they say we want Lidia to have the best heat in the game and we want her neutral to revolve around heat, but let's also give her these neutral tools that don't facilitate that idea. And when you have a move as important as down forward 1, it should be a move that helps with Lidia's game plan instead of just kind of being there not doing anything. The good part about this change as well is if it doesn't give you a counter hit launcher and instead gives you something like Political Storm, then the frames on it don't have to be -13. As it stands now, down forward 1-3 has to be -13 because of the counter hit launch property. That's not something that you can change. I think that if you made that like -11, it would be too good. You can't. But the problem, as I keep saying, isn't with the frames or anything. It's the fact that that second hit, and the reason why no one does it, it doesn't help Lidia at all throughout the match getting a counter hit launcher. So if you change the properties on it overall, you can make it less minus. You could make this a counter hit heat engager like Elisa's that's -10, -11, and that is going to give more reason to actually use the follow-up. If your opponent can't get some sort of heat engager or knockdown or wall splat or whatever, well, most characters anyway can't get that if they block this move, that gives you more incentive to use it, and then that's going to contribute more to the intended mind game, where if down forward 1 is blocked and it's -5, then the opponent is taking a risk attacking into it because you have down forward 1-3, and that helps more with the general play style of Lidia that's entirely designed around taking the opponent's reads and their knowledge and their attacks and turning it against them. And you just can't do that with the current iteration of down forward 1. So I talk about this a lot, but one of the more interesting and unique aspects of Lidia is her execution with her links off of forward 2. Well, now it would be the same as doing something like this, right? So now you can do forward 2 in heat and actually still get full combo off of it, but the difference is that requires very tight execution to be able to utilize, and it would enhance Lidia's skill ceiling even more. But besides down forward 1, there are other neutral tools that Lidia has as well that frame-wise just don't make a lot of sense and would help her a lot if they got changed. That's going to lead into number 5, which is going to be 4-3. 4-3 is Lidia's old magic 4 from Tekken 7. The 4-2 has been taken out of the game, so she can't get full launch. However, she does, on counter hit, still get this into a guaranteed down 1+2 follow-up on counter hit. But the problem with this move is that it's just too punishable for what it is. She has no other move out of this. She doesn't have the high anymore that she can mix up with this. She kind of has to commit to the string, and it's -14 on block. Now, you can do some weird staggers with just the 4, but the 4 is only +1 on hit and -8 on block. So they're not preventing you from doing this, but it's not helping you in any way just throwing out the 4 by itself. A lot of the time, if I use this, and I use this very rarely, it's because I have a hard read that the opponent's going to do something, and I can't do down forward 2. So there's like a 2-frame window in specific situations where I'm like, yep, the opponent's gonna do something, and I can't really stop it. So say back 1, and then I know that they're going to do something like, I don't know, like a 12-frame mid, like Yoshi or Elise's down forward 4, and they just keep doing that over and over and over again. That's the kind of situation where I would use this. Very, very niche scenario. Almost never comes up. And the problem with this is just -14. Some characters can launch you, most characters can get heat engagers, and the actual follow-up that you get off of this is just compared to other moves like this is so disproportional. It's giving you a grand total. I'm trying to get this right so it actually shows up on the combo counter. 62 damage with 3 stacks, which is like, it's nothing to sneeze at, of course, and it gives you wall splat, of course, at the wall, but for the -14 portion of it, and on top of the fact that you lose Oki afterwards, it's just not doing enough to justify the -14. If it was -12 instead, it would be a lot better, and not only would it be a lot better, it would be a very, very useful and scary move to use at the wall. Having something with a little bit faster start than something like down forward 2 to be able to utilize at the wall, get wall splat and full combo is very good, but you still have that risk of getting punished with -12 and then losing the wall if you use the move. So there is a dynamic with it, and I still don't believe the move would be amazing if it was -12, but it would be a hell of a lot more functional, and it would be more useful, and you'd see it more for sure if it was -12, but I don't think it would make it broken in any way. I think it would be perfectly reasonable at -12. And now continuing on with the neutral tools, we of course have to talk about Lidia's homing moves. The way that you deal with sidestepping is so convoluted and so ridiculous that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I have a hard time believing it's intentional. The way that you deal with sidestepping normally with Lidia is delaying your attacks. So if the opponent here sidesteps to the right, again, Lidia's weak side, and I immediately do back 1, you can see how that whips. But if I have a read on their timing, I can back 1 with a little bit of a delay, and that's going to catch this sidestep. Same with forward 2. That is the normal way that you deal with opponents sidestepping when you're playing Lidia, and it is a very effective way to deal with it because, of course, you get heat engager. But there are a lot of times, of course, where when you do that, it's not a good thing to do because the opponent's mixing up a lot with jab or maybe even counter hit launchers, and when you're delaying that attack, you're opening yourself up even more because you're turning this 18-frame move when you delay it into effectively like a 30-frame move, right? It's not a very accurate way to describe that, but it's just supposed to get the point across of how open that you're making yourself by doing this. And it's so, with how Tekken 8 system works, it's so convoluted and unorthodox and outside of what any other character in the game has to do to beat sidestep that I don't believe this is intentional whatsoever. Of course, the property had to be put on the move. Like, if you do back 3, for example, and you delay it, it's not going to realign. So, like, there is intentionality behind it, but this shouldn't be the main way that you deal with sidestepping. And that's going to get us into move number 4, and that's going to generally be her homing moves, and they all suffer from a similar issue. They don't do anything, and they have no range. So, like, back 4, no range. Down forward 3+4 has a little bit of range. Terrible stop, does nothing on hit, -9 on block. Core circle forward 4, absolutely no range. Brush past her face, not phased at all, and puts you airborne, and is very slow startup. 17 frames, of course, as a core circle forward motion in it, so it's going to be more than that unless you're input buffering it, which, let's be honest, a lot of the time that's not what you go into be when you go into be doing homing moves. And overall, all of these homing options are just weak, and because of that, we have to rely on other options to beat homing, like the down forward one we talked about before, or the delay on something like, oh my god, the delay on something like back one, for instance, is the main way of dealing with this instead of the actual game mechanic, which is homing moves. And I think that should tell you everything you need to know about how these moves need to be changed, how they're fundamentally flawed. But it goes beyond just them being fundamentally flawed because of their lack of use and the risk you have to take with them, the startup speed, them being high so they just lose the step duck anyway. That's a whole nother discussion. But also how they differ so greatly from other moves that are similar to it. For example, down forward 30+4 at least has a similar move, back 3. But instead, but the difference is that back 3 with Elisa knocks down on normal hit and is 20 frames. And she also has another mid homing move, forward 4, that's also -9 on block, but has a full extension and puts her in DES. So if you respect the string, then she can get a mix-up off it. Facilitates her game plan, right? With Lidia, down forward 3+4 doesn't do anything. It's slow, -9 on block, only does something when the opponent's to the wall, +12, but who cares? You know, like, yeah, they can't sidestep forward 4-2, but what does that do for? It doesn't really do anything. Back 4 is pretty nice because it's, you know, it's -3 on block, +6 on hit, and on counter hit gives you a guaranteed down 1+2. So this move actually has quite a bit of uses, and you see this quite a bit more than some of the other homing moves with Lidia that you see. But the problem again is the range on it. The range makes this move so difficult to use. There are a lot of times where you can like block a move that the opponent does think they're going to sidestep, and they don't even duck, they just backdash and it whiffs. It makes this move very difficult to use despite it on paper being quite good, especially because this move actually does facilitate Lidia's game plan hit because it leaves her +6, so you get access to your frame trap options. If you actually hit the right link with forward 4-2, then it tracks sidestep as you saw there, but it still of course has a lot of problems. And then there's core circle forward 4. Oh my god, this move. This is the move that actually should be the really strong counter hit tool. You know, like, yeah, it doesn't have the range, but if you're in the opponent's face, you get 1-2-2, except 1-2-2, you can just like rage on all of her options or armor through all of her options. If you do 1-2-2 on here and then 2, you know you can sidestep this and armor through the 1. So I said 2. You know you can armor through cat 1 when 1-2-2 hits you. A lot of people don't, but you can. So if this hits, because you're only +10, if you do this, the opponent can just get out of this situation. So yeah, you're putting the opponent in a mix-up situation, but it's not a very good one, and you can put yourself in a mix-up situation accidentally if you get a little too overzealous with this move. On top of that, if you look at other moves like this, slow, high homing moves that pretty much every other character in the game has, they are super plus on block. Look at like Leroy and June, for example. They lead to frame traps themselves. On a hit, they give you combo or heat engager guaranteed. And Lidia just has a version of this move that is that, but significantly worse in every way. When this is blocked, it's only +1 on block. This doesn't help her at all. But Lidia being +1 is irrelevant. It doesn't do anything. What are you going to do? 1-2? You can still sidestep. It doesn't, she doesn't get anything out of it. On top of that, of course, what we showed before is that on hit, this leaves you +10, which is great and all for the 42 damage, but because of how poor the mix-up actually is off of your 1-2-2 punish in cat stance, like what we demonstrated, what I talked about before, where you can armor through the 1, for example, or the 1+2, and then the 4, of course, is -14 on block, and the 4 also only does 10 damage, by the way. It makes the actual follow-up off of this not very good, especially, again, when you compare it to other characters like Asuka, who gets just a full launcher, Leroy, who gets heat engager, June, who also gets heat engager. It's just the properties on this don't make a lot of sense. And the thing that this makes up for, that's made up for in it, is that 1, it's airborne, so it low crushes. but then that also comes with a caveat where you can get floated out of it. And the other thing is, because it's a core circle input, you can do it from crouch. But I'm also gonna ask you the question, when are you going to do this move from crouch? After down 2? My microphone is flying away. You're not going to do this move from crouch. There's pretty much no application where you would want to do that. So because of how weak Lidia is to sidestep, and you couple that with the fact that the properties on Core Circle Forward 4 are objectively disproportional to most other characters in the game, what would be the change for this? I think that for down forward 3+4, it's really difficult to come up with a good solution to it. I think speeding it up by a couple of frames is probably the best thing you can do. Make it 19 frames and it would be okay. You're still going to use down forward 1 a lot more of the time, but at least the opponent can't step block this as easy. At least I can actually catch them, and maybe you can use it at the wall in some scenarios, even though a lot of the time, as long as you have the execution for it, you can just forward to them to catch the sidestep after you're +6 or something when you're in heat, so it doesn't really make a difference, but that would at least help. When it comes to back 4, I think back 4 is a fairly well-designed move. The problem, of course, is the range on it. Like, look at this. It barely even hits at range 2. I think more what you're looking for when it comes to back 4 is the simultaneous counter hit property on it and the fact that it's homing. And I think that what you should do then to make it more in line with other stuff with Lidia is make it 15 frames instead of 16. And the reason for that is because off of something that leaves you +6, like we talked about before, like down 1, I guess is something that you can say. That means that if the opponent tries jabbing into it or anything, you get the counter hit property instead of it being a trade, which is just awkward and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But the point, again, the point of the move is supposed to be twofold. It's supposed to be a homing move with a good counter hit property on it, and it's just kind of giving you the best of both worlds, and that would give it more of a use case than it being 16 frames and it can trade with jab and it just straight boosts the down jab and stuff like that. Then when it comes to Core Circle Forward 4, I think that what you really need to do with this move is make it +11 on hit. And the reason for that is because it would just make it fall more in line with other moves like this. It's slow, it doesn't have a lot of range, and the properties aren't disproportional. It's only +1 on block. It's not doing a lot for you on block. You can, obviously the opponent can duck it, they can float you out of it, they can step duck it, right? And that makes it perform pretty poorly as a homing move. But if you got more reward out of it, there would be more reason to use it. And this is supposed to be more of Lidia's hard read tool that the opponent's going to sidestep. So if it's a hard read tool that carries those risks with it, then you should get more reward out of it. And listen, past +11, it's irrelevant. Make it +12, +13, it doesn't matter up until +14. And frankly, getting Political Storm off it on normal hit would be a bit too ridiculous. But if you make it +11, then it would stop that whole feels bad moment of going into the mix-up and then being like, well, Christ, they can just armor through my mid and the low doesn't do anything, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you do 2-2, then they can't armor through the 1. You still can do the 4 to go in the Wolf. You're plus enough that you can manually go in the Wolf, or you can cancel the stance. And you've gotten enough damage off of it too, where you're perfectly comfortable and fine. Like, you're doing this 27, you do this, that's another 28. So we're talking 55 damage in total. That's a perfectly reasonable number for you to say, okay, I did the thing. I'm just gonna wait now and see what my opponent does. But if you do this, taking this risk in the 1-2-2, you only gain 42 damage. You're like, it's just not enough. Where you're like, oh god, I took this risk. This is all I'm getting. So those would be the changes I would make to a homing moves overall, particularly focusing on Core Circle Forward 4. Now we have to address the elephant in the room with number 3, going back to her lows. Down back 4. This low is... It's a similar boat as Core Circle 44, and that's why I wanted to put it next on the list. And number 2 on the list is also going to be similar in many ways to Core Circle 44. But down back 4 is supposed to be the low that you use to not get launched right? By characters that don't have 14 frame, that do have 14 frame launches, sorry, like Jin, for example. This is the low that you use when the opponent is low on health. You want to get some sort of damage in, but you don't want to take that risk of getting launched. The problems, of course, and I don't think I need to reiterate them, it's 0 on hit, it does nothing on counter hit, it does nothing to help you game plan, it's slow as hell, it's 22 frames, it doesn't have any crushing properties, of course, so like if they jab you out of it, down 2 counter hits, this does nothing. Down back 3 on counter hit gives you something and is faster and is homing. Down back 4 loses the sidestep. Why is this hitting? Oh, because I'm hitting her. Down back 4 loses the sidestep. Why does it lose to sidestep? Dragunov has this exact same move, down back 3 plus 4, right? It's practically the same thing, super plus on hit, knocks down on counter hit. Yeah, it's launch punishable on block, but it is also practically homing. This move just has every bad property on it under the sun, besides it being minus 13. And frankly, a low like this shouldn't be minus 13, it should be minus 11. Like, why is Jack's down back 1, for example, minus 11 on block? And this is minus 13. When it's 0 on hit, 0 on count it, 22 frame stun, it doesn't make any sense. But I think there are other problems with it too. Like if you give it a counter hit property, like if it knocks down on counter hit, that'd be well and good. But what does that do? Why was Lidia utilize that? Just down 2. If you want to get counter hit with the low, down 2. That's what you want. You don't want counter hit down back 4. It would be a nice extra thing that you get, but it's not something you would ever fish for or really care about. What about speeding this up to 19 frames? Well, it still has the same problem where it loses the sidestep, right? And it's still 0 on hit, so it doesn't really do a lot. What about making it minus 12? Well, it still has the problem where it doesn't do anything for Lidia because it's 0 on hit and doesn't do anything on counter hit, and it still loses the sidestep. So how do you change this move? How do you make this move work? How do you make a low with Lidia like this that serves its intended function of being low that you can use on the opponent when you don't want to get launched in specific matchups like against Jin or Raven or anyone like that? And I'm just gonna be frank with you, they need to overhaul the move. The idea behind it makes a lot of sense, but pretty much every property on it needs to be changed. Instead of being 0 on hit, it should be +2, because like back 1, it's not the ideal frames for Lidia, but she can at least work with it. It should be minus 12 on block instead of minus 13, because you should not be able to get launched for blocking this low by like Kazuya and Eddie and characters like that. It just doesn't, like, why is it minus 13? There's so many outlets. Like Alisa's down 4, for God's sake, is minus 12. Why is this minus 13? It also shouldn't be 22 frames. It's way too slow to be practical a lot of the time unless the opponent is being very, very defensive, and that adds to its niche-ness. It doesn't do a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. So speeding this move up a little bit to make it like 19 frames, 18 frames would help it a lot. And it's fine if they do that because down 2 is also 18 frames, but it has that high crushing property. This wouldn't have the high crushing property, so it make it fall in line, and there's still a lot of ways that you can beat it. Also, for God's sake, if down 2 can track to Lidia's weak side, why can't down back 4? What's the purpose of down back 4 losing to sidestep when every other low in the game like this beats sidestep? They're all practically homing. All these hatchet kick like moves are homing. Why is hers not? Why does hers lose to sidestep in both directions? It's like the entire move needs to be overhauled. But if they make this move actually usable for its intended purpose, it would help Lidia a lot. That's one of the things that Lidia is sorely lacking, are lows that can't get launch punished by like half of the characters in the game. And Lidia having a low like that to decrease the risk that she does to actually open up those characters would be extremely helpful. It wouldn't make much of a difference in matchups like, say, Shaheen, where he's only really launching down back 3 anyway, so you can use down 2 to try opening up, getting him the crouch. But the main purpose of Lidia's lows is to get the opponent to crouch, is to get the opponent to block them, so then you can throw in some back 1s or some forward 2s and stuff like that. And so having a low that's able to work those characters a little bit more and in a safer way would be very, very valuable. And this is the move to do it. They just need to make it so that's actually usable. Speaking of moves that would be very valuable if they were actually usable, that brings me to the number 2 spot on the list. Forward 3, 4. Do you see how that whiffed? Did you see how that whiffed on sidestep when I delayed it? This move is so cool. It's such an interesting move. This is the worst move that I love with Lidia, but it's so bad. I've tried and tried to make this move work, and it's so bad. Let me start with the crust. 4-3. But before we get to the dough and then the pepperoni, well, I guess the dough and the crust is the same thing. Before we get to the cheese and the sauce, let's talk about the dough. Let's talk about the baseline of this move. The first pot, 4-3. Why is it -11 on block? What is the idea? What are you trying? Are you trying to pull my leg karate? -3 or -11 on block. This is punishable. This is punishable. And it's not just punishable on block. It's -4 on hit. And it's not, this isn't even natural on hit. Watch this malarkey that's about to happen here. You die. It's -4 on hit, does 12 damage, and you die. It's terrible. It's awful. And the idea, kind of like down forward one of some Amus, is it's like, oh, well, if I block the first hit, then I do the second hit. And if they try punishing the first hit, then they get hit with the second hit that does a grand total of 38 damage. It's not enough. Just like what I was talking about with Core Circle Forward 4, this should be at minimum +11 because of the whole thing that we talked about with 1-2-2 and being able to beat the mix-up options out of that. But also, it's not just that, it's also the fact you're getting so low damage off of a telegraph move that you can launch, and you can, as we saw at the beginning, sidestep it. So it's not doing anything. It's not doing enough. And the frames on it don't make any sense. And of course, if they block this move, like, yeah, you can delay this to Kingdom Come and then you get floated out of it. But if you do this and then delay it and then they block it, you get a grand total of +1. It's not enough for the risk that you have to take and just how bad this first hit is. -11 on block is terrible. And even if you go, oh, I did the 4-3 and I know they're going to jab. It's not like you're getting 38 damage. There's no purpose behind it. You're better off doing Red Poppy that at least, you know, it's -14, but it gives you a counter hit launcher and it doesn't leave you launch punishable. There's no purpose behind this. I've used it. The best use case oh yeah, and that's another part about this too. The range on it. But the best use case I found for this move is twofold. One, specifically beating Yoshimitsu Sword Sweep because the airborne starts on frame 6 instead of frame 9 like generic hotkicks do, so it's actually a good move to get over those lows like Sword Sweep. Very niche application, but it is good in that matchup specifically. Other thing I've used it for is keep out, because if the opponent is approaching you and you know that they're going to do some sort of running move and you're out specifically at this exact range, and you do, oh god, and you do 4-3 here, you can counter it and confirm this, and then you're getting 52 damage, which is what we were talking about with Core Circle Forward 4. If you got 2-2, it's 55, and then it's like, okay, that's enough where I can just stand back and relax. But you still have to take such a big risk to do it, and you're also risking getting punished if the move is blocked. And of course, if the move whiffs, then you're also risking just getting launched. Like, oh, but I could do the extension to stop the opponent from being able to punch me. They jab you when you get floated. You understand? It's like all of the properties on this move don't make a whole lot of sense. And I remember as well from Tekken 7, you remember when this hit wall splat? Remember when this move wall splat? Crazy. If only we had 4-4-3 +4 again, the wall splat too. But overall, just none of the properties on this move make sense. This should not be -4 on hit. This should be like at minimum +3 on hit, just with the first hit. It should not be -11 on block. It should be like -7 max. And even then, that's probably, that's like, I think that's the most reasonable, but it could probably be brought down. And then pretty much the same things that we talked about with Core Circle Forward 4 in terms of frames should also apply to the follow-up of this attack. Like, yeah, the mind game is there. You can understand what the mind game is, but there's no realm where anything about the properties of this move, specifically with the first hit, make any sense. And if the dough deflates, then the cheese and the pepperoni all fall off. So the idea where, like, ooh, I can do this nice little keep out tool, and on counter I can hit confirm it into a nice 52 damage, It's nice. It's nice. It sounds like a good pizza pie, but in an actual practical setting, because of how bad the frames are, it just falls flat, and it's so close, and that's what makes it so frustrating. But one thing that Lidia is very critically lacking is a nice keep out tool from this range. The best thing that she has really is like back 3, but that's also leaving you punishable, right? And you are opening yourself up. Back 3-4 is also great for opponents that you know are going to approach, but carries risk with it, of course, because they conduct the high. The high is also -10. You do the follow-up, it's launch punishable. You have forward 2, but of course, if they're like dashing in and sidestepping, that has its whole host of issues. You can political storm out here, which is great because you can hit confirm it and it realigns, but it's also leaving you punishable. And because of that, also down 2 is a good one for if like the opponent's out here, and then you can like dash in while they're dashing in, and then meet them in the middle of down 2 and try counter hitting off of that. But for the most part, Lidia has a lot of problems out here, like specifically at this range. Out here, she's fine, right? Because she can dash in and out. She has options there. Here, obviously, she's fine. But specifically at this range with forward 3 would be great, that she's lacking something. And forward 3, if it got its properties changed just a tiny bit, just move a couple of frames around, make it so that forward 3 is punishable, then it would be good, because then you could throw this out as a keep out. Yeah, if there's whiffs, then like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but you can still do this to dissuade them from attacking but not already hitting a button. And you can counter hit confirm this into the big damage, and that would just give Lidia more options out here. It would increase her skill ceiling because of the choices. If there would be a very specific range where you use it, it's right here. It's specifically like here. If you're any closer, then you have stuff like back 1, for instance. If you're any farther away, then you can like dash in, play your neutral game, forward 2. Like you can go out here, like I said, me in the middle, down 2, stuff like that. It's specifically right here that you would want to use this, and that is an interesting part of neutral, having a tool that's specifically designed for a very specific range that's between like here. And I think that's the intended purpose for this move too, because I've used this move despite how bad it is at this range, and it is effective. Even at the highest level of play, it's still effective out here. It works, it does something. But the risk that's associated with it makes it so that you can't use it at all the times that you should. You have to use it very sparingly. You have to use it very conservatively. And if someone knows how to deal with this move, they just die. I've used this move against Lidia players in video games. They use it against me, and then you know what I'm doing? I don't care. I'm just fuzzy duck, fuzzy duck, fuzzy duck, fuzzy duck. Oh, they did the high, launched them. And if they are always just doing forward 3, then I just punish it. And it's like, okay, you like if they hit me with the 4, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, because then they do, oh, 1, 2, 2 in the cat, and then I armor through the mid, and it doesn't matter. So it's like, you took all of that risk, you lost all of this health, you took all of this damage, for what? So before we get on to the #1 spot, which is probably going to come as a surprise to pretty much everyone here, I want to give some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I want to give is cat 4-3+4. What is the purpose behind this move? I don't know. I don't know how you change it either. That's why it's not on this list, because if you make it so that it catches like 14 frame punishes, then that's just kind of dumb. If you make it so it catches any punish, that's ridiculous. The being a second mix-up within the mix-up is just, it's dumb, but I think that's the intention. But also 14 frame moves just catch this anyway, so what is even going on here? I don't know. What's the purpose? I don't get it. This is a move that just, I can't even begin to understand why it exists, and I think we would all just be better off if it was removed from the game. Back 2-3 is the next one, and this is another one where I think the properties that make a lot of sense. You know, it's +6, it does decent damage, natural normal hit, it's pseudo hit confirmable as well. It's pretty hit confirmable. Mid is -10 on block, and it's a mid launcher. This was safe in Tekken 7, but with the nature of Tekken 8, most moves like this have been changed to be punishable. I think this makes sense. Really, I think that there are 2 problems with this move. One, it only being +1 on hit, -9 on block, forces you to do the second hit when you shouldn't be forced to do the second hit, because it's supposed to be like a way to stop the opponent from attacking rather than something that you forced to use, especially when this hits. Like, we should go back to its old properties where it was like +5 or 6 on hit or whatever, and the back one on block was like -3 or whatever it was. It was significantly better than this. But also, if they added back in the old back 2-1, that would make this such a good poke. It would be so nice. But they really gutted this move, and you barely see it, and it's barely used because, like, I mean, no one's attacking into this, to be frank. And what are you doing at -9/+1 to make anything threatening to force them to attack into this? The answer is no. I've tried using this move. I think in my entire time playing Lidia, I've gotten the counter hit launch off of it a single time. Down 1 and sidestep 2 are also mentions of moves that just don't make any, like, what's the point of this? What's the point of the 19 frame +6 mid that on counter hit knocks them down into a guaranteed follow-up, but then is just slower and worse in every way than down 4 2? I don't know. And then what's the point of sidestep? It doesn't even give you +6 on hit, and on counter hit, it like gives you the knockdown for 47 damage. Like, again, why are we doing this and not? I don't know. No idea. These moves, again, no one uses these for a reason. Down back 2, like, this is supposed to be a move that you use, right? It has like a frame. You can see right there, a frame of crouching status, so it can crush highs sometimes. It's +7 on hit for some reason, but like on counter hit, it doesn't do anything. On block, it's -7 again for some. Like, why is it -7? It's clear that this is supposed to be more than just a combo tool. I mean, obviously you see this used in combos a lot, but it's supposed, the properties on it don't make it out to be like a combo tool, like Brian's down back 2, for example. There's supposed to be some sort of use case in here, but the frames just don't make out. Like, look at the range this move hits. It's useful. It's supposed to be useful in some way, but however they've designed it, it's not there. All right, and now finally, for this very long video that I've been recording for a long time, and I'm sure I'm gonna have a hell of a time editing, is the #1 move that I think Lidia should have buffed in Season 2. It is not going to be a move that you are expecting at all because you forget it exists, but buffing this move is going to would have significant changes on Lidia's entire neutral game. And that move is, drumroll please, Wolf 3-1. Okay, so I know that I sound a bit crazy. Everyone's going, what are you talking about? Wolf 3-1. There are a lot of things about this move that, if it was changed, would make all of Lidia's stances better. Wolf, cat, a horse, heaven and earth, all of them would be better if this move was buffed. How is that the case? Now you're looking at me even crazier. Like, this is a move from Wolf. How is it going to make cat better? Here's the reason. If you do horse 4, armor beats every option except for Wolf 4. Every single one. It beats 1, it beats 3, it even beats 2, the fastest mid. So the only move that you have out of Wolf that actually beats armor after horse 4 is blocked, you know, this big move you have to take a big risk by doing, because if you do like forward 2, then they can sidestep it, they can counter hit launch you, they can just launch you straight up, they can do a whole host of things to stop you from being able to do this. Yeah, that move, the move that's supposed to be big risk but give you a free big mix-up, they can just armor through everything, so that you lose out on the mix-up. It's the same with cat as well. Although cat forces the opponent into crouch, they can still keep burst out of the mix-up. And even still, if they have a punch parry, they can of course parry all of the moves, because the 2 is a punch, the 1 is a punch, and the 3 is only natural on counter hit. So, like, yeah, you hit them out of the 3, but what does that do? It doesn't do anything. And so again, the only option that you have is the 4. And of course, the 4 is great. The 4 is good. I shouldn't say great. It's good, but it's launch punishable. So you're using this move that's a low, that has no like actual counterplay or like built-in counterplay to stuff like armor moves or parries. That's the only way that you can be armor moves and parries. And then that's not even to go into the fact that if the opponent's enraged, then Rayjot beats the 4. So why? Why am I taking this big risk? Like, this low, again, it only does 10 damage because the purpose is that it puts you into Wolf so you get big mix-up out of Wolf. That's the idea. But if you can mitigate the entire mix-up with armor or Rage Art, then what's the point? And the answer is, a lot of the time, if the opponent knows how to deal with it, there isn't. It sucks. And if you see me playing Lidia a lot recently, like when I do Cat 4, I don't do it for the Wolf mix-up. I'll do like this and then go in the Wolf and then not do anything, because there's so many options for the opponent to get out of the mix-up that it's just not worth doing sometimes. And that shouldn't be the case. You also see, I barely use Wolf 4. Like, I maybe use Wolf 4 once per set. Once per set. Because, again, if this move is blocked, they can just armor through everything. And that's what I do a lot of the time when playing against Lidia too. Like, oh, they did 4 and then they go in the stats. I'm going to do the 2 armor. And then they're like, huh. The entire dynamic is flawed. And there are other stances in this game as well that have had issues like that, like Stephen King, for example, have gotten changes to those stances to be able to more reliably beat power crushes. Lidia hasn't. And the fact that there is no specific tool for beating power crush after using these big high-risk options tells me that this either isn't something that they thought about, or it's just flawed character design. Universally, there's almost always some sort of tool that is used to deal with armor, and Lidia just does not have that. Even when it comes to like 4-4-2 in the horse, 1+2 is used to deal with armor. 1-2-2, we were talking about this before, you can armor through the mid. The counter hit on the 4 is used to deal with armor. What does she have in Wolf? That it doesn't do anything. So my proposed change to allowing this dynamic to work a lot more fluidly and just make more sense is to make Lidia's Wolf 3-1, instead of it being 17 frame startup, make it 14. Make it the fastest move that she has in here. And let's just talk a little bit about how Wolf 3-1, Wolf 3-1 functions by itself. The purpose behind it is supposed to be a counter hit tool. If this counter hits, the 2 hits are natural, you get a guaranteed forward 1+2, it does 53 damage. For what it is, it's decent. If you ignore the fact that you have to go into a second stance for it where you can get large punch multiple times out of it, and you have to make a hard re in order to be able to safely go into the stance whatsoever, and even then you can still get armor through it, or you can get jabbed out of it, or you can get launched out of it, or you can counter hit out of it. All things considered, it's an okay move. Or it's an okay idea. But when, practically, is this ever going to come up? The idea is that because this is 17 frames, if the opponent does jab here to try interrupting, like, let's say, the 4, or let's say the 1, right? The idea here is that when horse 4 is blocked, you can use this, counter hit them out of a jab, and then get that guaranteed follow-up. And just like, hear me out here. If you get power crush through all of the options, including the 3-1, why would you jab? Yeah, like, you understand what I'm saying? Especially when it's like Victor or Azucena that have high power crush. When would the situation ever come? And that, I think, is how it's short-sighted, because the entire purpose behind this move is supposed to be a counter hit tool for catching the opponent hitting a button when Wolf 4 or Cat 4 is blocked or hit respectively. But they can still hit a button and go through that anyway because Power Crush startup. So it's almost like they forgot that that is an aspect of this. And that's also why that's also why this move is only natural on counter hit, because that is its primary purpose. Now, the other thing that you can do too is you can, of course, stagger the hits, right? Because the first hit is only -6 on block. The second hit is only -6 on block. And on hit, this first hit is +4. So you can still go in the Wolf, just do the 1 hit and then be done with it. But Why would you do that when you can do Wolf 2 and knock down and wall splat and it's faster? So it still beats jab. And it beats Rayjot too. I should point out, because Rayjot has 7 frame stop as opposed to Power Crush having 6 frame startup. So if you do Wolf 4 here and then Horse 4 and then Wolf 2, that beats Rayjot. 3-1 doesn't. So why are we using that move? And then on top of that, if we're taking this big risk going into Wolf, like 4-4-2 and then go into here, and then we do that's all we do? What does that accomplish? It's not accomplishing anything. We did 10 damage to them. We risked getting launched 5 times. We like swam through the river surrounding Alcatraz, and we just got caught by the Coast Guard anyway. No pun intended, because of the stage we're on. So the problem with not having a tool like this, or rather the tool like this being fundamentally flawed in its application and execution, means that all of these wolf transition moves, including manual wolf transition, are just bad. Like Wolf 4, Wolf 4, I'm getting all these names screwed up. I'm so hungry. I've been recording for an hour and a half. But Horse 4 is just, like, you don't get a free mix-up. It's like when 1-2-2, it's like, yeah, you could do the mids, but then it loses the power crush, and you could do the lows. But it's actually worse, because at least here, if you do that and they power crush, you get a full launcher. If you do the, like, Wolf 4 here, then you get 30 damage. It doesn't matter, like, counter hit. I'll turn the counter hit. Oh, it beat armor, it does 32. Wow, we got 2 more damage. Meanwhile, if they block it, then you took that risk, and then you get launched anyway. Same with Cat 4, right? Now, Cat 4 is better because it forces them into a crouching situation. But say you do Cat 4 into 3, they can crouch cancel in the armor move still because of how slow it is. They can't crouch cancel and then beat the 2, but if they have the execution, we can still do Power Crush to get through it. All we have to do is crouch cancel out of it, but Power Crush still beats this move. And that's not even taken into account if you just do Heat Burst. If you have that available, that just gets it out of the mix-up entirely. And the risk that you're taking here, again, is that you get, like, -14. Of course, it's not counter hit because I have the bot set to do a follow-up after that, but you get the idea. It's -14, like, a lot of characters can launch this. So, if we made Wolf 3-1 actually fulfill its purpose, it's stopping opponents from attacking, make it so that it beats Power Crush, make it so it beats Rayjot when we go into Wolf, then it would make all 3 of the stances a lot better. It would make Cat 4 better by association. It would make Horse 4 an actually useful and scary move, because now the Wolf mix-up does more. You can get more utility out of it, and that's not even taking into account too the fact that this can wall splat, right? So if they attack into it at the wall, then like you actually have a really good counter hit wall splat option now that beats Power Crush. Whereas if you do this, like, who cares? Sorry about that coughing fit, I'm still sick. It would just make the overall dynamic make a lot more sense. It would be more fluid, and you would have a real answer to Power Crush. It would also make Heaven and Earth better too, because if we did say, and I'm gonna turn them off of doing this real quick, but if we did say, you know, 4-4-2 in Heat, into 4, and then we had this as an option to be able to beat their grab or their Power Crush or anything else they do, now they actually have to deal with the Wolf mix-up on top of the Heaven and Earth mix-up. And the important thing is, like, while this already beats grab because the frames, I mean, it grabs at 12 frames, this is coming out essentially on frame 11, if it's able to actually beat like Rayjot or Power Crush, it will make it better, because now it's like, yeah, they can grab you out, but they can also like Power Crush, and they have more options. It limits their options and gives you more things that you can do to stop them from being able to counter your Heaven and Earth mix-up. It adds to, I guess what I'm trying to say is it adds to their mental stack and it reduces yours. So it allows you to have more options and the opponent to have less. And when you put them to the wall here, it makes that decision even scarier to have to do. But here's the most important thing. It makes it so that if you do this, you actually have a significant response to Rayjot. Because if you do this, and the opponent has Rage, and they do Rage on, you go in the Heaven and Earth, you're dead. If you do 2, you beat it, but like, what does that do, right? Like, if you, again, outside of the wall, like, what does 2 do? And this is ultimately what the problem comes down to. It's like, what does this do on hit? Like, what is that dissuading them from doing? If you do 3, you die. You do 4, you die. You do 1, you die, right? Like, every option that you do here in Heat, if they have rage, you die. And that's a major shortcoming of Lidia, is that she really has to slow down her pressure when the opponent is in rage. But you shouldn't be forced into that situation when the opponent's in rage if you go in the wolf. Like, that's the entire purpose of the stance, right? That's the entire purpose of, like, the 4, is so that you can do this and you do get a mix-up that they actually have to deal with, but and you can continue your offense, but just as it works that you can't. So in my opinion, I think that would change the entire dynamic around how this stuff works. And, you know, there are other applications of this as well. For example, right, if the opponent sidesteps here, the second hit realigns, right? So if the opponent tries, after this is blocked, tries sidestepping the wolf mix-up, like, obviously the 2 is going to hit here, but if we say do the 1, then they can sidestep it. But if we have access to this, that's gonna realign if they don't sidewalk. If they sidestep into a button, that's gonna hit them. And when it also beats Power Crush and it has more utility and more options, it's both scarier for the opponent to do these things now, which makes our wolf mix-up better, and it plays into the entire idea behind the move and makes the stance overall flow better, function better, and just overall be more solid and feeling like less of a bit of a humbled mess. So overall, those are my top 10 buffs for Lidia. Those are the top 10 changes that I would want to see for Lidia in Season 2 of Tekken 8. This was a very long video. If you stayed to the end of this, whether you're just watching it for second monitor content or whatever, I appreciate it. I hope I did a decent job of explaining my reasoning behind all of these moves and why I'm interested in all of these changes. And hey, if you did make it to the end, feel free to subscribe. This is why I do my shilling when I make a very long video, because frankly, I feel like it's warranted. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so for more Lidia content and gameplay and educational stuff and fun stuff like Guess the Rank, which will be returning soon. Also, feel free to stop by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sesujin, where we do a lot of live streams. We stream a lot of Lidia. We stream some non-Lidia stuff. We're currently playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That game's been really fun. So if you want to come by and say hi in the streams, or if you just want to stick around for future videos, check out the links in the description. Hit the like and subscribe button, because I'm currently dying. I'm like coughing my lungs out because I'm so sick, and I'm still here for you guys because I love you guys and I want to be able to put out quality stuff for all of you. So if you could give me a like, and again, if you enjoy the content, if you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Okay, I'm done shilling. I think I've done what is allowed of me after recording for 2 hours. So I'm gonna go. Again, thank you all for watching this extremely long-winded and exhausting video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye! Oh, got my microphone. Bye-bye!